Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Our Life Beyond, the podcast where we explore how to navigate and hopefully thrive through some of life's biggest transitions. I'm your co-host, Scott Dibben, and I've teamed up with my great friend and mentor, Connie King, to share some stories, strategies, and insights that helped us adapt to the ever-changing seasons of our life.
Whether your life transition is divorce, death of a loved one, switching careers, moving to a new city, or just trying to figure out what the hell is next, we're with you every step of the way. But always remember, we're not therapists, just fellow travelers with a knack for finding humor in the chaos, and maybe some untraditional method of overcoming what life dishes out to us. Hopefully, you'll have fun embarking on this journey. So now, let's get started.
I want to give a special thank you to Habit Coffee for sponsoring us. So if you're local to Springfield, you're probably aware of the miserable construction at Highway 60 and Farm Road 125 heading into Rogersville.
Yeah, right in the midst of all that progress is the Habit Coffee Company, a fantastic local, vagina-owned business. They're more than just a coffee shop. They serve delicious, scratch-made breakfast and lunch options. They have a state and county-inspected kitchen, and they love catering events. While it might take a bit of extra effort to reach them right now, they're excited about the upcoming expansion when the highway reopens this fall. Support the Habit Coffee Company and enjoy their incredible offerings today.
Thank you so much, Habit Coffee. Hello, Connie.
Hello, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm very excited today. I'm thrilled about our guest.
Well, tell me about it.
All right, so today we have an old friend of ours. We have known him for 40 years. We all went to high school together. His name is Brad. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He is here to share a very personal journey with addiction. Brad is not only a well-respected member of several communities, but also a devoted father, a genuinely kind-hearted individual who's made a huge impact on so many lives. His story is one of resilience and transformation, and we're so honored to have him with us to offer insight and hope for navigating similar challenges. Brad's openness and courage in discussing his experiences make him a powerful voice for change and understanding. So without further ado, let's dive into this very, very important conversation with Brad. Hello, Brad.
Well, good afternoon. How are you guys today?
We're
Well,
good. How are
thank you so
you?
much for coming on, Brad.
Yes, I'm
Glad to
so
be here. I love that intro. I'm really impressed with myself, Connie. Thanks.
Well, we've always been impressed with you, so we're really excited to hear about your story and your journey, and I think it has such beauty and importance in it. So, with that, do you want to kind of start off telling us a little bit about yourself or where you are in your journey, or you tell us, you lead this conversation. So, go ahead and tell us what you're thinking.
Sure. I'd tell you, when we started talking about doing this, I first was like, oh, absolutely not. I just wanted to tell you guys that you were doing a great job. But what I do, it's because it's different because you're from a time in life and a place in life from me that I have left behind because of my addiction. I found a new life, which I had to do. So it's a little nervous. I'm a little nervous today, but I'm okay with it because I love telling my story because part of what happens with people who are in a recovery after any kind of addiction is you have to tell the story in order to help somebody else that needs to hear what you have to say or what you've been through.
Yeah. And
So,
that's kind of what this whole podcast, our hope for it is to help others and to let others not feel alone, whatever journey they're on. That was our
absolutely.
purpose of this. So, yeah, I
When I,
appreciate it.
when I
Thank
hear
you.
you say our life beyond, that's exactly some of the things that I say about me and where I am today in 2024. I'm sober from alcohol and drugs, but mostly drugs. Now for 4.5 years. In February, I'll have 5 years of sobriety. Um,
Congratulations.
Thanks. I can't, there's a part of me that really can't even believe those words. I grew up in a really safe environment, but it also had its problems. My family life was not what most people thought it was. And I'm not going to dwell on that, but the point is this, that behind closed doors, the experience of my family was very different from what most people saw publicly.
Mhm.
And I had a great mother, I had a great father. They're both deceased now, and I'm sad about that. But there's also a certain freedom from it, and it's part of my recovery, to be honest with you. Um, I've had to, accept the fact that along the way, I wasn't a very good son. I wasn't a very good friend. I was not a very good husband. And I know I wasn't the best father, but I have somehow come out of this with two of the most amazing, supportive, and loving children that I could ever have, hoped for. I mean, they're amazing. But they've been part of it with me. They've struggled. They've been hurt. My family's been hurt. So it's part of the deal. But I spent the better part of 35 years hiding an addiction that eventually became so raging that it took me down. And I don't dwell on things that happen, but I'm lucky to be alive. I survived 3 overdoses, including one that very, very much, uh, really, I shouldn't have come back from. To be honest with you, I was in the hospital for a long time. And most people didn't know that. Like I,
Mm-mm.
I was good at hiding it, and until I wasn't. And then my sister and my brother, um, and a few very close friends said, enough is enough. We're done. And you either go get this right this time after some failed attempts at getting sober, or we don't want to know you anymore. And the truth is that they were right, and that was what saved me. And so I came to a program in South Texas, and I entered into what was a contract basically for a year of intense recovery work, sobriety, full accountability, including a 1 year contract with myself, my family, and a treatment center in Central Texas, South Central Texas. And I moved to this farm out in the middle of nowhere where I cleaned toilets and made food and did group sessions. No TV, no phone calls, no phones, no music, no radio, but 30 minutes a week. Um, and I did that for 4.5 months. And then I left that program, that part of the program, and went to an intensive, high accountability sober living situation that was just a little bit more freedom, i.e., I could have a phone, I could watch TV for a certain amount of the day, but I had to be outside of the house and I had to get a job. I worked at Lowe's and got awards and patches on my little vest, and I was so proud of that. And rode the bus to work. I had no car, but I can tell you that all of that happened to me when it was during COVID. And if I had not had that experience there during COVID, I would not have survived. There's absolutely no way I would have survived. My level of life was absolutely zero, and I would have ended up alone and dead. And that's just the truth. But after a year, I moved, from sober living to a sober apartment, and then I got to have an apartment by myself. Sadly, at that point, kind of right at that point, my mother passed away. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years, which was by design. My sister, my brother kept me away from her in order to save her from seeing what was going on with me. Eventually, my children came back into my life, but it was not immediate. And now today, my sister, my brother, my children, I, everyone's back. They trust me. They love me. They're supportive, and it's all because of this program that I found in this life in recovery. If without that, I can't say I would have been able to survive.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
So Scott, me and Scott, our wheels are turning now. So, w just why did COVID play such a big part? You said, if it hadn't been COVID, you don't think you would have survived. What was it about COVID that played such a big part?
Well, if I had been still in a house in Southwest Missouri, using drugs the way I was using them and isolated the way COVID isolated people,
Okay.
it would have been over. And so for me, I was in this, but I actually had very little idea of what was going on in the world with COVID because I didn't have any experience. I never left the property for 4 months.
Right.
Um, so it was like it was bizarre, other than like letters I would get from the outside world. We really didn't know.
Interesting. So how did that help you not having contact with the outside world? What do you think the benefit was to you with that?
Well, so the program that I went through was a 12-step Alcoholics Anonymous based intensive immersion program. I worked a program of all 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous every single day in every aspect. I did a lot of group sessions with the other men that I was with. There were 30 other men there. Um, and we had chores to do and we learned how to deal with each other, but there were no other outside distractions. So taking away the phone, the news, the TV, the material parts of the world, and just getting down to the bare bones of pen and paper and book and connection, and finding a faith that I clearly did not have, and using a spiritual basis that pulled me into the world of the living. That's what it gave me. And that's what happened there.
And something I want to emphasize here is I don't know if our listeners will understand when you say, I worked at Lowe's, I rode the bus. So I'm going to kind of explain it from my viewpoint, okay, if you don't mind. But Brad is from a very prominent family. Um, I don't like saying this because I I know it's not always the truth, but I'm going to say it so our listeners understand. Brad probably came from a place of not really I'm gonna say, please forgive this, of not wanting. Like, you had a car, you were blessed with, you know, things that a lot of people may not understand. Let's
Connie, I'll
just
say it,
go
it was privilege.
Yeah.
you were very privileged, but at
It's a
the
lot
same
of
time, you were
privilege.
such a kind guy, let's just face that. So, I don't want anybody to get that mixed up. But for you to say, I went to Lowe's and I was so proud of the ribbons that I got. And, I was riding the bus. I think that really shows that you experienced what the hardships. I mean, that's a hard thing for anybody to go through. And then coming from privilege, it was probably very humbling.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
humbling. And I'm not going to say I don't want to downplay it because it was a very important part of what happened to me.
Right.
But I also want to say, so that people understand this, that what you're talking about, the real parts of life, that's the most important thing that I learned. And I was disconnected from that. Um, Not because I thought I was better, but because life just lent itself for things to be easier for me. And
Hmm.
it had to be stripped of those easy things, that privilege. The fact that no matter what I did or didn't do professionally and whatever successes I had, which I am proud to say, I had some successes as a businessman in that town. Um, but I took it for granted. And
Sure.
um, and I knew that no matter how far I fell, I could probably get back up again, until all of a sudden the people around me very intelligently said, "Yeah, that's not going to be that way anymore." And I got fired by my father, and my wife said goodbye, and there were a lot of things that happened over a period of 6 or 7 years that made me. losing my grip, and uh, and I wasn't going to survive.
Interesting. But you did survive. So can we kind of go past like
Sure.
the point we're at and
Yeah.
start moving forward? Because this is the part that's so beautiful to me about this story. So you get out, you are successful in your sobriety, and now what do you do with it?
Well, I made the decision. I got approached while I was working at Lowe's by someone that I used to that I knew at the treatment center that I worked with. And they said, your story is a little unique. Your path is unique. We think that you could help people. And I said, I don't know. I'm really doing everything right now. I don't want complication. I don't want, anything to knock me off the beam of success that I was on, which was very simple success. It was doing my meditation, staying sober, being drug tested twice a day, and working and paying my own bills with what I was making, um, and nothing else. No help from my family or anyone else. And so I thought, well, maybe I can help people see that I'm a happy person. And that's kind of where I got that was amazing is I found I traded hate for love. I traded doubt for faith. I traded despair for hope. I traded complete chaos for a peace that I had not ever known. I didn't think could exist.
So, Brad, what did it take to get you to that point, though? I mean, because from the outside, I mean, you had a great life. Everybody thought the world of you. I remember you all the way through school. But even later on, you said that you went through, a couple overdoses, a few things went on. What was the turning point, or what was that point that made you figure out that you had to do something?
I had nothing left.
Okay.
I was I was unhappy. That the guy that you knew, I hate saying this, but the guy that you knew, although I appreciate you saying I was nice, and I think I was a nice human because I was always taught to be that way, but I was intensely unhappy. I had spent the better part of 49 years being intensely unhappy. And I had to forgive myself for the mistakes I made in order to get to the point where I could forgive anyone else in my life for anything that I may have thought that they did, that they may or may not have actually done to me or thought to me. One of the greatest things that has come out of this for me is I live my life every day saying, what you think of me is none of my business. The
Wow.
old Brad was so worried about what you thought of me that I was handicapped by that every day.
Which I'm going to make a comment about that because I also, after Rob's death, you get to this point where when you have nothing left and you are on the floor, you when you start rising above either your circumstances, your emotions, whatever it happens to be, that's exactly what happens is you are more concerned with the spirituality of life or um the higher power.
Sure.
It's
Mhm.
like that's the thing that gets you through those things, and what others say kind of falls off. It's just a natural transition, I think, that happens.
Yeah. And I mean, even going back to what you had said, Brad, I wasn't in the same circumstance, but 5 years, 6 years ago, I would have never done a podcast. I would have been so concerned about what if I say something wrong? What if and
Absolutely.
somehow I've transformed myself, and I have, into I want to help others. I want people to hear stories about other people. And I just really want to be the best person I can be going forward. And it it's like a almost a switch that flips. And when that happens, it's such a relief
It's
for
a
me.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a big relief. And I talk a lot about peace, and some of that is, like, I had a sponsor that I worked with early on, And he said to me, "You need to shut up and listen." And that at first I was like, "Well, okay, you can go fuck yourself." But then I was like, "Okay, maybe there's some truth in that." And so I started really just listening to the people around me, and that is kind of like a concrete part of where I am today. And that is, you know, it's not up to me to change other people, to save them, to fix them. But what I can do is listen to them. I can be there for them. And when asked, I can give them the experience that I have that changed my life, that moved me forward, that sustains me every day. That faith and that spirituality that I've found, which, by the way, has nothing to do with conventional religion. I want to make that very clear. I am religious. I do believe in God,
Sure.
but my faith and my spirituality are completely separate from any kind of religion that I may or may not practice.
And this is kind of an offshoot. How do you describe that to somebody? Because there's a lot of people who do not understand it when they don't feel that. They can say, well, you're religious. What does that mean you're spiritual? That just means you're religious. Could you hit on that topic just briefly?
Spirituality is surrendering the fact that you cannot control everything that happens to you in life. Faith is believing that all those things that happen to you have a purpose and an ending. Hope is what you get from putting spirituality and faith together and living a life based on believing that what you need to do is surrender all of the control over to a higher power of some sort, whether it's, God or a different entity that you believe in. You have to have that connection with that higher power in order to do that. I said earlier, forgiveness is very important, not only to other people, but of yourself. Before I forgave myself for the things that I did wrong or the perceived things I did wrong, I had to figure out how to, you know, exist, not believing that the center of the universe was Brad. I had to be able to say, okay, it's important that I know I am not the most important thing in the world right now in front of every single person. I'm just a person here. I'm just a breathing human being in a world of people that are trying to get by and support and help each other.
Mm.
So do you think that part of your success is getting out of the Midwest area where we're at, moving and just almost reinventing yourself?
So, Scott, I appreciate you saying that. And I want to be very careful with that because I don't want to say that you have to leave everything. I had to because I was addicted to drugs and I couldn't get away from the things that were sucking me back in. The disease of addiction knows no no bounds. It's just until you go to complete abstinence and until you get yourself right in your own mind and make your body clean, you can't get there. So for me, I had to leave. Ultimately, what happened for me is I found out that a lot of what was going on with me and that was feeding my addiction was my unhappiness for who Brad was in that area
Yeah.
and who Brad was expected to be by family, by other people that I knew. And I had to make the change to divorce myself of that person in that life in order to become the person that I am supposed to be. And I believe that we all have that person we're supposed to be. And that's like what you guys talk about and how you have evolved to who you are today through the experiences that you've had. That's exactly the same thing as what I'm doing. And anyone can do it wherever they are, but you have to be aware of the things that hold you back. And you have to be willing to do what it takes to save yourself.
So, who are you today? Let's go to that piece.
Wow. Well, let's
Yeah.
see. I'm a dog dad. I and who I think my children feel gets treated better than they do. But no, you know what? I'm a happy man, is what I am. I'm 53 years old. I'm getting ready to go back to school and get a master's in social work. Um, I attend group meetings of some sort, 1 to 2 times a day by choice. I have an incredible partner that enriches my life and supports me and makes me happy. um, I have, my family back. I'm sad, I have no parents anymore. My parents are both deceased, and that's just a hard thing to do. And there's a lot built up in that as well. I've had to go through a lot of therapy, some trauma therapy that happened for me and my family. I don't speak for my sister or my brother, but there were some things that happened in our family that really defined the trajectory of my life. And I had to free myself of those things in order to say that I can be a healthy human being now. But my life is really full. I'm like, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people that I love to come in contact with every day to help. It's good.
And how about your kids? Do you have a relationship with them?
I do. I'm not going to tell you that they weren't damaged by everything that happened in our family with between me and their mother and my addiction and some of the failures that I had. But I also feel, honestly, Kai, they they are stronger human beings. They're both in their early 20s, and they're good, solid human beings, and they help people. My daughter uh, works at a boys and girls club and just loves all of these kids, everything about them. My son is he works in New Mexico in the forestry service and uh, is happy and healthy. And my daughter's getting married. I'm gonna have a father or a son-in-law. I'm gonna be a father-in-law.
Mhm.
And that's all good. I talk to both of them on a regular basis, and they've let me back into their life. But it wasn't easy. It's taken every bit of the last 4 years for us to get to the point where we are today. It was not quick.
You know what I come away with from my divorce and a few other things. I thought I had to be the perfect parent, so I tried to structure everything to shield him from,
Sure.
fights, anything and everything. But now where I'm at, and maybe it's because he's older. Of course, he's 26, but I feel like I am not only a parent but a friend now to him. I mean, I share every experience, good or bad. We talk about, almost anything. And I think by him knowing that I'm not perfect now, it makes his life a little easier because I think everybody, whether you look up to your dad or something, the person you're looking up to, you're trying to be a person similar to them. And if you can show I'm not perfect, I think it's better for our kids.
You're human. And
Yes.
I think we forget as all humans that we are not perfect, that we don't have to know everything. We don't have to find out every answer. There are some things we just may not ever know.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to learn ourselves. And then you want your kids to have this like great life. And then you realize they're not perfect either. And they have feelings and they have things that they go through that may be different from what you're going through. And I'll tell you something that's happened to me. I learned from my kids. It's not just
Absolutely.
me guiding them. I learned from them. My son like basically checks me weekly on things like water usage and how much I'm using my car and what am I using a compost and things like that. I never thought about things like that. Here I am,
It's
I listen to what they have to say.
isn't that funny how I have 2 things to say about that. First of all, kids are resilient. I mean, not only resilient, but so forgiving, especially of parents, and that's the one thing I had to dole out forgiveness, but it was the easiest thing to do for my parent, you know, was to dole out that forgiveness because I wanted to. And then the other thing is, I remember it's kind of a story about kids checking you. I had met this man who was a spy in World War II, and I'm thinking, "Oh gosh, he's gonna think this generation's just crap. And I said, "What do you think of this generation?" And he said, "You know what, Connie? Every generation that comes up has something better than the generation before. Different, but better." And he said, "This generation's going to be just fine." And I have said over and over, my kids teach me on a daily basis. Every time I talk to them, they teach me how to see things differently,
Sure.
and so I get that. Kids are amazing. So
But
sorry, that's
I
just
think that
my
it's
input.
important for people to hear on a regular basis that you can break the cycle, just because your parents or grandparents or whatever were one type of parent, or they did or didn't do this or that. You don't have to do it that way. Organically living and listening and experiencing humanity with everyone around you, especially your children and family, is hallmark to survival. And I know so many people who cannot get past feeling like they have to do it exactly the way their generation before them did it. And breaking that cycle can be really difficult. But once you do, it opens up a whole new area of life and love and peace. And I use those words constantly in my life. And I do that because I didn't have any of those things. I had love. I did, but the love that I feel now is much deeper, much more centered, much more realistic, and the peace that I have sustains me. It's crazy. I have zero capacity now to have an argument with someone. I mean, even I had somebody at the grocery store the other day. They said, "Hey, I think I was in line before you and you cut in front of me." And I was like, "Okay." And I just backed up and let him in. 5 years ago, I would have been like, "Excuse me?" You know, I
Yep.
would have gone to town on those people.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, the transition is really cool, actually. Interesting. So what would you say to somebody who is it's I don't wanna be cliche, who's going through addiction? What would you say to anybody who is struggling right now? Like, what is your message to people?
My message is actually probably very clear, and that is ask for help, seek help. If it's medical help, if it's guidance, if it's spiritual help, or just ask a friend. I think that every single person in this world has those moments where they're too ashamed to ask for help. And I constantly tell people, if you don't ask for help, you can't receive it. And I believe if people can just open themselves up to seeing things that might be a little bit different from what they are naturally, taught or ingrained to think or see, there's a different life out there. There's a different way of doing things that might give a seed of hope that keeps them going and keeps them from moving backwards. Moving forwards is the only thing that will keep anyone from being, you know, standing still and moving nowhere. You have to continue to change. You have to continue to seek help, and you have to continue to talk about it and listen to the people around you. I think one of the things that drives me nuts about the world we live in is everyone wants to give their opinion. They don't want to listen to what somebody else might be thinking. They're so afraid that someone might not think the same thing as them that they miss everything around them.
Wow, that's so true.
Mhm.
So, it, what about the people on the outside that's trying to help somebody that has an addiction? Is there any words of wisdom for them as far as what can they do to help?
That's a tough one, Scott, because the truth is, until someone is ready to get help, no one can help them efficiently. Um,
Mm.
I very specifically remember sitting in a vehicle with my brother, and although everything in me wanted him to go away, I knew that the only chance of my survival at that point was to go where he wanted me to go and to take me to get help. And that's a point that some people don't get to, Scott, because it's too late before they can get to that point. But for those family members and people that want to help, I say go seek your own help in how to help that person. Um, until they're ready to let you in, it's going to be a dance of beating your head against the floor and the door frame and the concrete. So basically, I was just saying that, when people are in need of help, they have to reach that point where they're willing to accept it. And there are so many places for people to go and get help. If someone is an alcoholic or even a drug addict, you can go to, Al Anon meetings, and teenagers and children can go to Alateen meetings. There are all kinds of support groups, for people who are in need. But unfortunately, it's hard to be the person that wants to save someone because most of the time that's not going to work until that person wants to be saved and wants to have help or has truly reached a bottom that is their bottom. It's just not going to happen. So, talk about it, listen to people around you, take guidance. That's what I would say.
I've never I've been fortunate. I've never had anybody around me that's had to go through this, but I read the book and I think I may have even watched the movie Beautiful Boy. I don't
Hmm.
know if you
Yep.
yeah, and just
Phenomenal book.
yeah, and just watching what that dad went through because he tried to keep saving him.
Hmm.
Tried to, and I think you're right. I think you can almost you can't make them do anything. You have to almost step back and let it happen and be there whenever they hit that bottom. I think
One
that's
of
the
the
only way you can
worst.
help them.
Yeah, it is. And one of the worst things, and gosh, I hate saying this and I'm sorry, but one of the worst things that is part of what I do in the world that I live in now is that I see a lot of people go away for good. Um, but almost every single time after, the person is gone, the family that is left has a peace because they realize that they could not have changed the outcome,
Yeah.
that what was going to happen regardless of how much they participated in what the process was. And that's for good or bad. That's family members and friends who gave up and said, I can't do this anymore for my own good. I have to walk away. To the mom who continually tries to clean up the mess. When it's over, there's an overwhelming awareness that there was nothing that they were going to be able to do for this person.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so powerful. Whew. Dang. Scott, do you have any other questions? Because I think we're about out of time, which I
Yeah.
hate.
Well, I do have I think I've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Go
Let's
for it.
So I know, I know you're good today. And I know that how do you convince the people around you, or does it get easier? Does it get easier for them to quit worrying? How does that? I can just imagine somehow they've got to believe that every day you're doing what you need to do, and that it's getting easier for you, and that they don't have to worry as much.
Well, the only way for them to know that is for me to show them by staying clean, by staying on a good path, by being rigorously honest about my life and where I am. If you had asked me if, 40 years ago, if I would ever get on a podcast and tell you that I'm a needle junkie, that I was a drug addict, the likes of which hung out underneath a bridge with homeless people, I would have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But now I say that not because I'm proud of it, because it's just the truth. And, you know, I, I think, I think that what we forget about is that we're all human and we're not perfect. And I've said that a couple of times in this, but it's just that that's exactly what I think. My truth is what sustains me. And for those people that are nervous about me going back, I can't fix that. It goes back to that thing I said, what you think of me is not my problem. I can only do what I have to do for myself today. But the proof is in the living. It's a living proof by you seeing me and how I live my life and how I live with the people around me and how I take care of myself.
Wow. And one other question, I'll let Connie jump in. So Is it easier now? I mean, can you give somebody hope as far as if you go through all this, every day gets easier, or what does that look like from your view?
Yeah, every day does get easier, Scott. Absolutely. But I want to make it very clear that if I don't stay on my program of recovery and if I don't continue to make myself better every day and take care of my own personal mental health and spirituality, I could easily go back into those patterns. The longer I am sober, the more I can say I don't see that happening. But I have to maintain a connection to my sobriety and to my spirituality and to this program that I work every single day. If I allow that, like if I go on a trip and I can't get to a meeting every day, I feel it. I know I need to have that connection. I know I need to be with those people. I love the fact that I have a place to go in every town I go to, which for me is AA, but you can also get on a Zoom meeting. There's connection out there, but it's a program of work and experience. You don't sit back and take it in. You have to work it. You have to experience it. You have to give back. You have to communicate with other people just like you. Otherwise, it doesn't happen for many people.
Gotcha.
Wow. Well, this has been extremely powerful. And Brad, I'm going to say, I am so proud of you. I'm sorry.
Uh,
I am so proud of you and that you have been vulnerable in this. And, I remember my friend from high school who was always happy and just, I'm sorry that none of us, knew your struggles and even college, but I'm really proud of you for being vulnerable and for taking care of you. That's what I'm really, really proud of. So thank
Thank you.
you for sharing your story
Yeah, I'm
and
happy to,
thank you
and I
for
love
getting
this.
well.
Well, thank you, giving me the chance to do this helps me stay well.
Well, I know that's going to help others when they hear this. So
Can I leave you with a thought?
please.
Absolutely.
The past is history. The future is a mystery. Today is a present. Treat it as a gift.
Whew.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to also say, Brad, I so appreciate you getting on here and doing this. There is no way this could have been easy. I know even my story, which, your story goes so much deeper, but my story was hard. I can't even imagine you doing this. So I do think it'll help other people. I think if they can take one little sentence from what you've said or one idea, I think the amount of people it could help is just endless. So I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. There is hope out there, and everybody can recover.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Our Life Beyond. We really hope that you found our discussion insightful and inspiring, or at least brought a smile to your day. If you did enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review. For more information, resources, or show notes, visit our website at ourlifebeyond.com. You can also follow us on social media. Search for us on Facebook at Our Life Beyond. We would love to hear from you, our listeners, so feel free to reach out with your questions, comments, or suggestions through our Contact Us page at ourlifebeyond.com or on social media. And once again, thank you for joining us on this journey. Till next time, remember, life beyond any challenge is possible, and we're here to navigate it with you. Stay strong, stay positive, and keep moving forward.